This segment is brought to you in part by the Canadian Historical Arms Society, owners of the Genesee Range, the premier recreational sport and training facility in Western Canada. See us online at historical-arms.com.
The Quiet Professional, a podcast about law enforcement, security, justice, and politics. We are digging deeper on the issues and going where the information takes us with access to experts and authorities. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Quiet Professional. Today, we are actually going to be doing an update to a recent podcast where I had a guest on and we were just discussing some product certifications, things in this realm. So this was around a conversation on the Environmental Protection Agency and how they had classified certain products when it came to stuff like disinfectants and decontamination. So that was with the SoRite company. I had their CEO on, who was Autumn Ryan. We got an update. So this will be exciting. We got an update. Wanted to get them back in. So today I have Blake Bernard here. He is the Chief Operating Officer and guru of all this stuff. So I'm going to throw it to you, Blake. If you can give us a bit of an update on, or actually we'll start with a background on you so people know who you are. And then we'll get into the update and just talking about some of these labelings. And I think we'll have a pretty good discussion going. So yeah, a little bit about you.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, everybody. Blake Bernard, Chief Operating Officer. I'm also legal counsel for SoRite. So I kind of oversee all of our regulatory submissions and government submissions, things like that. And I think a lot of the conversation around the regulatory side that we have with the SoRite products, we have a couple different products. So there's the disinfectant, which is absolutely regulated by the EPA. We've got our decon products, and our decon products are for fentanyl and narcotics. And then we've got Defense Cleanse, which is for OC decontamination. And so one thing we get a lot when we're out talking about decon, in particular, our narcotics decontamination, it is a cleaning product for a very particular purpose. They'll ask us, like, is it EPA registered? And the answer is no. And there's a pretty good reason. We just simply can't. So what the EPA oversees is it's fee for claims. So it is the federal insecticide, fungicide, and rodenticide. And so essentially, if any product claims to sanitize or disinfect bacteria and viruses, then that falls under that fee for category. So we have done some, and I'll pause there. I know
No, you're on it. You're doing good. I mean, you're explaining all the acronyms here because
I tend to go long, but I know we do nice little segments when we do the recorded podcast. So if you ever want me to just shut up, let me know. I was going with that.
You were talking about FIFRA, yeah.
Right. So if any product has a disinfectant claim, sanitizing claim, like, differences there, like even if it was just a general purpose cleaner, but it doesn't make any disinfecting or sanitizing claim, that's not FIFA regulated. So that's not something that really falls under the EPA's purview. So where it gets interesting is, like, on a disinfectant label, you could say things like it also eliminates odors, right? Which is not really a bacteria and virus disinfection claim, but it's a non-FIFRA application that can be coupled on one label, right? So there are some non-FIFRA things you can add to a disinfectant label. Now, where the EPA kind of comes in is if you're going to make any sort of claim on a disinfectant label, they just want to make sure it's safe, it works as they say it does, it's safe for the consumer, both, pre-application and post-application. So what the EPA has told us is they will never get into the narcotics decontamination game and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what's the right level of efficacy that you need, safety profiles, all of that. It's just they won't do it.
So maybe I'll ask on that.
Yeah.
I guess a good example would be fentanyl. So if I got fentanyl on a table, like the EPA doesn't want to put any sort of certification on that on the label saying it's been wiped down. You're now safe to eat off of it. Like they don't want to get into that.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Like, and there's just there's a lot of unknowns. Like when you think about EPA testing that we have to submit, it is you started with these many bacteria of pseudo or staph, right? And we apply this much of your product, and after however much the dwell time is, this much went away.
Oh, okay.
Right. So on the narcotics side of it, it's just so different, right? And there's a lot of products out there. They work differently. You never really know exactly what you're getting, right? A lot of the time, when you're doing, and on the decontamination side, it could just be an unknown powder, and you have no idea what's in it. So there's a lot of unknowns. There's a huge safety risk there just because it's deadly narcotics that I think the EPA is just saying we're not going to get involved with that.
Maybe and I guess in some ways, and I'm totally ignorant to how they do a lot of their certifications, but I could kind of understand that just because of how fast drugs change. Like from what I understand,
100%. Yeah.
Every year it's like, fentanyl's almost becoming an old thing. And now we've got, we're 6 drugs down the line. So it's like, how would you keep up with the chemical compounds?
Exactly. There's new synthetics. I mean, they're always trying to, you come up with a solution for one, they'll pivot it to where, that's that market, right? It's very tough to stay on top of it just from an R&D standpoint. So the fact that it changes a lot, and the fact if you're wrong, it's a really high liability for the EPA. So, I mean, they have told us flat out, you will never have narcotics decontamination claims on the same label as a disinfectant. So, what you see is a lot of companies will register both, right? They'll register a disinfectant for the disinfectant purposes, and they will register, a decon product, or not register. They will just have a decon product that is not in the purview of the EPA. And where you get where people can get a little tricked up is they'll say, "Oh, our product is EPA registered."
Yeah.
Right. But if you actually, I would challenge anybody who's looking at a product where they say we are EPA registered, go look at their actual EPA registration. It won't say narcotics anywhere on it.
Well, and in that, so one of the pieces that Autumn was talking about, I don't know if we had it on the podcast or if it was after, but just how some of the competitors, they use like a multi-step process where yours is an all-in-one.
That's right.
Yeah, so part of their process has this label on it, but it doesn't necessarily apply to the rest of the products. Like in the steps you would have to use it.
What we've seen some people do is like, here is the component, and they'll use one of the components and register just the one component, and the instructions are basically mix it together with the other components and then apply it. But so they do a couple of things. They just take one piece of it, and it'll be like a peracetic acid or something like that, which is a known disinfectant.
Okay.
So they register the one part, and then they talk about combining them. But even beyond that, even after combining the 3, when you look at the applications, it is only about disinfection. So, to say if there's ever any sort of, implication that the EPA has registered or approved or reviewed any of their, fentanyl or narcotics testing, that's just not correct. Now, I mean, the EPA has got they've got a, just general environmental protection. Fentanyl narcotics is obviously going to be inside of their purview, but not as far as a registered product with the EPA. So, the EPA has taken an interest into the narcotics decontamination space, particularly for like hazmat, right? I mean, that's a big one. Like when you go into hazmat and they're doing cleanups, what they're really concerned about is sort of the environmental after effects. So after they do a cleanup of that, what's going into the sewer, what's going into the groundwater, how are they disposing of it, all of that. And from that standpoint in the hazmat space, they've done studies on what's the effectiveness of bleach, right? And I think we've seen one where it's like bleach it works, but it takes about 50 hours. So,
oh, really? Wow.
From a quickness standpoint, right? You don't really compare. One thing that we have seen too, like there are other decontamination products on the market that are those 3-part systems, and they can be pretty gnarly. Like most of them require you full hazmat suit up while you're dispensing the system.
Maybe I'll mention on that. So after COVID, at our gyms at our work, so with the police, they started bringing in these containers that I used to only see in the hospitals. And as far as I know, these wipes, basically, they kill everything. So they use them on all these surfaces. And those things eat through my fingers. Like
Oh, yeah.
you're supposed to use like I guess gloves when you handle it. I'm like, I'm in
Yep.
the gym every day. I wipe down all the machines. Like, so I'm touching these things constantly and it literally eats through the skin on your fingers.
Yeah, so that's all the testing, and the EPA looks through all of that, right? So like
Really?
we have, like when we submit, like for our disinfectant, when we submit our safety data, it's all ingestion. If it gets in your eyes, if it gets on your skin, long-term exposure. Like there's a litany of tests that you have to do to satisfy the EPA on the disinfection side. So
Mm.
our products are all a little bit different. They're driven off the same main active ingredients.
Yeah.
But our decon is a little bit stronger, or a significant bit stronger than our disinfectant. But a lot of our safety data that we use across all of our product line is coming out of all that data we submitted to the EPA for the disinfectant. So, it's not only is it ready to use, but we do have we have a very low toxicity profile. So, safe on the skin, not a problem to ingest, all of that.
Okay.
Now, that's to say, those three-part systems that are a little bit more gnarly, they probably work better. Like they will take care of more narcotic than our solution can. And we fully acknowledge that. I mean, we've got testing to show that, but because they're three-part systems, are they useful for a cop who pulls over somebody on the street, right? You don't have the ability to three-part mix in a full chemical outfit and then
Yeah.
decontaminate the scene.
It's the right solution at the right time, at the right place. Like,
Right, and
yeah.
and so what we basically say is like, all the other decon products out there and ours are all tools in the same tool belt. So they all have their place and where they can be leveraged. And frankly, our decon product really solves a hole where there's
Mm.
plenty of places that need to be decon that currently aren't, right? And especially with fentanyl, being that it's so potent and so toxic, a little bit can really do a lot of harm.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of those situations where you're just not seeing any decontamination happening at all. They're just using soap and water or whatever the case may be, and it's not really doing anything to the underlying surface.
I want to go back just a bit to the labeling though still.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about a three-part system, and if they, or however many parts some of these places might use, if on one part of it, they've got that labeling, the certification, but the rest don't, and say somebody dies or gets seriously injured or sick from using that product, right? They expect, I got rid of all the drugs on this countertop or whatever it might be, and then they get sick. Is that company just kind of running the risk then that, you know, they might not get sued or they will get sued? Like, is the EPA
Oh,
going to take the brunt of anything?
no. But that's to your point. That's exactly why they won't put their name on a product that makes those kind of claims, because it's just too risky.
Mhm.
So, that's going to be your general products liability type discussion. Like, did you do thorough testing? Did you know the metes and bounds of your product? Did you adequately warn? Did you provide proper instruction? Like all of those sort of product liability issues are there, and that's on the manufacturer. But that issue is exactly why the EPA doesn't want to get into that space, because if somebody doesn't use it properly or whatever, then now all of a sudden they're implicated because they did approval.
But for the company itself that puts it on one part of their three-part step process, are they not, I don't want to say it's not being truthful, but it's just, are they not running like a huge risk by doing that then? Because they're saying like, well, this one part, but I'm going to combine it with this other one and you'll be okay. Like go off and do, start concocting things together.
Well, what you'll see is a lot. I mean, and frankly, like we're the ready to use product, so
Mhm.
We're a little bit more straightforward. Like we have our disinfectant that is registered with the EPA, and we have all of our instructions on that product.
Yeah.
We have our decon product, which is not registered with the EPA, that has its set of instructions on how to use it for those different use cases. So you'll see a lot of competitors do exactly the same thing. They'll call it the same name, but one will be disinfectant. They may even call it EPA registered. The other one will be for their, narcotics decontamination.
Okay.
So they're doing it to where they've got it EPA registered, but when they sell it in the market, they really, even on their websites, will put it into two categorical uses. So it's basically the same thing we're doing.
Okay.
But we very clearly delineate our disinfectant from our decon product. And so what others will kind of do is kind of just generally put, the EPA registered label on it. But that's where they can be a little gray.
Yeah.
Is it's EPA registered for disinfectant purposes only. That's the only thing the EPA will approve.
This makes me think of like getting into the cereal box debate. It's like, can I even understand half the ingredients on the cereal box? And
Yes.
they put all the labels on the front saying it's whole grain and all these other things, and you're like, what does all of it mean?
Well, the old adage I keep going back to, I was like, if we could have put it on the same label, we absolutely would have. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it just makes all the sense in the world to have one product that does it all. But we can't do that. So, we've because of that, and it's not like we're not just repackaging it. We've modified that formula to better suit the narcotics angle, right?
Okay.
But if we could have, we would have, and we just can't from a regulatory standpoint.
So, who do you trust? Like, how do you know who to trust when you're looking at these products?
That's one thing that we have done because there's no regulatory oversight in the decon space in particular. That's why we have all of our testing data up on our website for everybody to see. They can pick it apart if they want to, and plenty of people have, and that's one of those things where you compare apples to apples, right? So from all the decon products, they should be making their testing data readily available so that you can trust it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Particularly new products like us coming to the market. There's companies that have been around for a long time, and people trust their products. For the new companies coming on, we want to be full disclosure and transparent, right? We don't want you to just blindly believe us.
Yeah.
But also, our testing data can also give some credibility to the guidance we give on how to use our products, right? So, like, we give very specific instructions on how to leverage it in the field, and that is all driven by our testing data. So we've done quite a bit. So we have put the full results up there for everybody to see, and each of those reports is like 30 something pages. So we also have kind of done some summarizations of it to help kind of quickly condense what's happening. But we've done LCMS testing, and that was a big one for us. That's something we took on last year. LCMS testing basically tells you if you start with this amount of narcotic and you apply this amount of your solution, you have this amount of narcotic left over after a given time period.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just that it's working, but it gives you a lot better quantitative data. And so that's where we have our directions of, and the way this gets way in the weeds on chemistry, but the way our product works, the narcotic has to dissolve inside of our solution. So once it dissolves, then the oxidation action goes to work. But if you don't dissolve, it basically is harmless. That's why we can take care of the fentanyl and the gnarly stuff, but not stainless steel or your skin.
Oh, I
right?
see.
Your skin's not dissolving in solution. The surface is not dissolving in solution, but stuff on that surface is. But when you look at fentanyl is really hard to dissolve. So not only is it gnarly, it's hard. And I mean, every decon product has that issue of getting it to interact with their chemistries. But so fentanyl is really hard to dissolve, whereas like meth and cocaine are much easier to dissolve. So our testing showed with 1 3-ounce canister, which I'll luckily have on my desk if anybody can see that. That little 3-ounce canister will do about a teaspoon of cocaine or meth.
Okay.
And then only about 5 milligrams of fentanyl, which is just a couple of specks.
Yeah.
But 2 milligrams is your lethal dose. So, that's where you get into, in most street drug cases, people don't ever just ingest full rare fentanyl knowingly, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times it'll be they're doing a Coke or a meth and it's laced with that little bit of fentanyl. And that lacing is really the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a cop setting or even people cleaning hotels, right? They come across an unknown powder. They can kick up some of that powder and they're inhaling even a little bit of fentanyl can send them over. So that to your point about how do you trust it,
Mm-hmm.
that's why we made the decision to put all of our testing data up there. And, it also helps show that it does what we say it does, but it also helps give credibility to the guidance we give on how to use the product.
In today's world, especially with the amount of people out there digging for conspiracy theories and all kinds of stuff, like trying to out people, I don't think there's any way to go but being like full frank and fair right up front, putting it out there. So
No, you have to be, and that's the big. If there's one message I can get across on the podcast is the EPA does not stamp of approval any narcotics decontamination product.
Mhm.
They just will not do it. So if they say a product is EPA registered, it very well may be, but not for narcotics decontamination.
Yeah.
So you really need to look at that supplier's testing data, vet it yourself, and make sure it all makes sense to you.
Awesome.
That's kind of what we have done, is just to get it all out there for everybody to see. And if they have questions, we're happy to answer them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely that regulatory landscape is a weird sandbox to play in.
Yeah, I'm glad you're on here to make sense of it all.
Yeah, it gets way in the weeds.
Yeah, even out of our last conversation, like when I was talking with Autumn, just when you get into the legalities of things,
yeah,
because it's like there's all the chemicals and the chemistry and all this stuff that's complicated enough.
It's complicated enough.
And you just layer on all the legality to it, and wow, what a world! I'm glad you're doing it. I wouldn't be able to figure it out.
We're doing our best. That's all we can do, right? That's all we can do. So, that was one. I know we appreciate the opportunity to come talk about it, because I know it's a question we get a lot. And I mean, I think people want that government oversight to give them the sense of security. And for that product line, it's just not going to be there.
Yeah.
So you got to just go off of the data the manufacturer can give you.
Great. Well, I appreciate you coming on here today
Sure.
to provide the updates. And I hope to see you guys up in Canada sooner than later. So we'll have to reconnect.
We are pushing hard. I can promise you that.
Yeah, great. Okay, hang on the line for 1 second.
Sure.
We'll chat offline. Hey everyone, thanks for listening in and following along with the discussions. Be sure to click the follow or subscribe button on your respective listening platform. Also, check out the Quiet Professional on X and Instagram under TQP780. And most importantly, please share where you can. Everyone has a part to play in getting these education and information pieces out there, so pass it along. Thanks again.